So for my Lab 6, I decided to implement a sort of flight simulation game where a player controls an airplane and flies around the globe. And I found this Earth object in the Unity Asset Store along with this plane object, along with the buildings that you see there. I didn't make any of these, but I found and imported them, and I added some functionality to my plane, including the ability to turn, the ability to change altitude, and then there what you're seeing is switching cameras. So I did 4 different cameras. One is the one you see there, that over the head. The other one is this zoomed out Earth type of camera. It's rigid, so it's not moving. And then the other 2 you saw earlier are the third person, which it'll switch back to here, and the first person camera. And next what you'll see is the collision system. So on each building there is a collider, and within the plane there's a collider, and when they hit each other it triggers an explosion event. And you'll see here in a bit that this explosion never goes away, and that's because I forgot to disable it on collision exit. So enjoy watching that the rest of the game. But this angle I think is the coolest for me because you can see that this globe is actually a semi-realistic map of our world. So you can make out all the continents and kind of picture where you would be. So I just think that's a fun thing. You might also notice that all of the buildings are perfectly perpendicular to the Earth, and that is not a coincidence. I placed them all around the Earth in different locations, but they were all rotated at random angles when I placed them. So I just scaled them to the size that I wanted, and then had a script handle normalizing them to the Earth. So all these features alone make for a pretty fun gameplay experience where you're just flying around a little version of the Earth, but I think it becomes a little more immersive when you add the audio in. So I'm going to restart this clip and I'm going to let the audio play. Good afternoon, this is your captain speaking. Welcome aboard Unity Flight J342 with service to anywhere on Earth. Our flight time today is unspecified, as is our ETA. The weather in our route is clear and shouldn't change considering I didn't implement a weather system. If you have any questions or need assistance, don't hesitate to ask one of our flight attendants. On behalf of all our crew, we thank you for joining us today and wish you a pleasant flight. So as you can see, I've added some voiceover for the captain of the flight, as well as some sound effects from my plane, so you can hear that when I'm boosting, the plane makes a sort of higher pitch sound, and then when I'm cruising, it's a bit lower pitch. Good evening, this is your captain speaking. We're coming up on some unexpected weather, and for your safety, request that you please fasten your seatbelts and keep your tray table stored for the next 20 seconds or so. You'll be informed when you're able to get up and walk about the cabin. Thank you. So what you just heard there was the explosion sound that triggers each time the plane encounters a building. And if you couldn't tell already, these are all homemade sound effects, so enjoy. We've made it through the turbulence and we're on to sunnier skies. You'll notice your fasten seatbelt signs have been turned off. Please feel free to use your tray tables and move freely about the cabin. We're closing in on a destination that shouldn't be much longer. Ding! Good evening, this is your captain speaking. We've begun our descent procedure and we'll be landing soon. Whether this is just a stop or your final destination, we'd like to thank you for flying with us today and encourage you to check the lab report for more detail regarding this flight. We hope you enjoyed your time flying with us. So that pretty much sums up what I've done so far for this lab. The obvious thing that I could go back and do pretty quick is get rid of the constant explosions after having hit a building, or destroy the plane after hitting a building. One thing I really wanted to implement with this lab that I didn't really get to is realistic looking turns, so like pitch and roll, and they ended up being a lot trickier than I thought. And I think the way that I would have to do it with the setup I have now is by creating some sort of animation for those 2 actions rather than trying to figure out all of the vectors to make it work. But overall I'm pretty happy with my implementation for this lab, and I hope you enjoyed it too.